Welcome to the new moon and a new episode of The Simone Frequency, a channeled podcast for the new earth. I'm your host, Trish Simone Wild. Episode 3 focuses on healing and the physical body, and channeled messages in this episode come from Simone and Doc, along with my own research and personal experiences and moving from just surviving to actually thriving with autoimmune issues and chronic illnesses, which I've been dealing with since my 20s. I'm 41 now, so that gives you a little bit of info on how long that I've been dealing with this. And I really wanted to focus this message on the physical body. I started filming it in Washington and then found out that my mother has been diagnosed with cancer, and that is why I picked up filming this episode at my hometown in Pennsylvania, where I'm working from for quite a while. So just some things to be aware of as we're working through this episode. Just like before, I will be switching back and forth between myself, clips of myself, and channeled messages from Simone. We're still figuring out the format and how we work together with my guides, but I really feel confident that we're getting it down. And channeling is starting to come in a way that it can be more intentional, and I understand how to work with it. So let's get into the physical body.
This morning, while Trish was getting a massage, she ended up having to deal with me and Doc in her ear, telling her we wanted her to make a video explaining the concepts of the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and the spiritual body, in order to explain how these are all interconnected and have an impact on the physical human body. Humans have greatly underestimated the need for the human body when they have attempted spiritual concepts. They do not think that the body is necessary. They're trying to transcend the body, but in fact, the body is the divine vessel to carry the soul through this experience here on earth. There is no other way to experience earth and to uplift earth and change the frequency of earth without enough embodied souls in the human body. And one of the biggest struggles that humanity has now is that this body, this vessel that is very, very important for the next level of humanity, is that the body has been poisoned and damaged in many, many ways, through disease, through pollutions, through external sources, in ways that we can't even begin to understand why, because there are many, many cases for which humanity understands that these pollutants, these are poisons, these do damage, these do harm, and yet it perpetuates for money. Your medical system is about greed. It is about keeping people ill. It is about keeping people sick. Trish knows this because she has been a vessel, an early warning system to many others, because she has had to carry chronic pain and autoimmune illnesses, as you call them, through her life and through her body. And now she is able to share what she has experienced with others. That was part of her agreement and part of her contract to come here and experience all these health issues, and also do research so that she could discover how to heal her own body and be a light to others who are traveling those similar paths. The human body is growing, it is changing. It can be possibly affected by light and sound frequencies. as well as getting the harmful products out of your systems that you put on them and consume. And it is everywhere. It is in your water. It is in your soil. And it can be fixed. I do not wish to leave this as something that is inevitable. It can be fixed, and it is being fixed. But it's very important to pay attention to what your body needs as time goes on, because it is shifting, it is changing what the human body needs. Be aware of that and pay attention, trust your gut. And we've asked Trish to sort of demonstrate this with a video that she has done using her own experiences and her own methods of teaching to relay this to you in a way that you can then find health in your physical body. This is really the focus of this topic, is the physical body, but do not think that the physical body is separate or less valuable than the mental, emotional, or spiritual bodies. They are deeply, deeply woven and connected in the human experience and must be honored as such and taken care of. And I work from the concept that we all have a physical body, an emotional body, a spiritual body, and a mental body. And today I'm really going to focus on healing the physical body and what I went through in my personal experience. I've had chronic pain and unexplained illnesses going on since my early 20s. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what it took to heal that. I'm working on a book about all this called Heal as Shit. That's the working title. But until I get that book finished, I decided I'd take a crack at kind of explaining just the physical body concept to you. And I'm going to do that using color theory, being an artist. The information I'm giving you comes from a combination of places. It does come from, a lot of it comes from my own experiences of having to research outside the normal U.S. medical. I live in the United States, obviously, couldn't tell accent. So I've had to deal with the United States medical system. And so I'm going to get into some of that. But what I really want to focus on right now is just talking about the physical body a little bit and what is going on in the human body. The other place that I get a lot of this information from is intuitively channeled from one of my guides, Doc. Doc was actually he was my doctor. He helped me a lot in my early 20s, around 2010, 2011, all the way up to 2018 until he died in a car accident. And a lot of people don't understand that what Doc was working with at that time was the way he helped me around food and nutrition, explaining my immune system to me was really important to help me get to the place I am now in my physical body and to understand how I got here. And so I am explaining this in some of the ways that he explained it to me, but then I've added to it, and then I am kind of channeling him in here. So that is me being very clear to you. There is a ton of research that goes into this, primarily from functional medicine and understanding how our body responds to toxins and poisons, either perceived or true poisons, and how the immune system responds. So there's a ton of research that goes into this. I'll direct you to some, but understand that some of this is also intuitively channeled. And a huge piece of it is just my own experience in life going through all of these health challenges with my physical body. So I'm going to lay this out for you. I have these 2 jugs of water. These 2 jugs represent 2 different people. One of the premises that I'm starting from is I purposely picked these 2 different jugs to represent 2 different people to emphasize that we're not even starting from the same place. No one person is alike, and no one person's healing process is the same. And we're all different. So
These jugs represent the body, and inside the water and the blue coloring represents everything this body needs. Version A is Trish, and it's kind of modeled after my life. This jug represents person B. We're going to call him Joel, and Joel's more of a conglomerate of people I've encountered and worked with over the years to really just demonstrate how unique the human body is and how unique our healing processes have to be. So I'm going to tell you a little story about each of these people and talk about how that affects their health along the way. All right, so I'm going to start with myself, Trish, person A. Trish was born, had a healthy birth, breastfed, all these things that we think of that need to we start out early on in life. What was unbeknownst to Trish is that from the beginning, she had a gene that didn't quite work right. And that gene impacted her immune system and her immune system's ability to work. So it was still there. It actually hadn't been switched yet to cause problems. Our body filters out things, but when we, open our mouths to allow things in, like processed foods and ridiculous 90s, basically anything with processed foods and dyes and these over sugars, corn syrup. I'm using these marshmallows to represent all these different foods we intake into our body. And this is corn syrup, which is sugar, modified cornstarch, dextrose, water, gelatin, natural and artificial flavor, yellow number 5, red 40, and blue 1. So all of these dyes and these artificial ingredients that are being put in our food are actually poisoning us. So even though Trish is born fairly healthy, she has this kind of funky gene that's still pretty much working, right? She's, even at a young age, she's starting to intake all of these things that impact her. So as we're moving through life, we, have things added to us. And hopefully our filters are working and filtering it out. If all the filters in our body are working, a lot of things aren't getting in, and the things we don't want are getting out. And the idea is this can stay balanced. But what starts to happen over time is we have to face the reality that we do not live in a natural world. Even though our water looks safe, it's actually, we know now that a lot of our water is not healthy. And this isn't really a debate. I'm just telling you this fact. Our water is not healthy. Our water has poison in it. So even though, in theory, we are getting what we need in our body and we're getting rid of it, what happens is what Trish's body needs is different than what this body needs. So we have to make sure we're doing what we can over time to give our body the nutrients it needs, the kind of sunlight it needs. What this body needs is not going to be the same. And so we're in this constant battle of poisons in our system from our foods, from our soils, from our water. And then on top of that, we have, these invaders. They're represented by these colored ice cubes, germs, bacteria. So Trish ends up getting tonsillitis a lot as a child and ends up having to get put on penicillin a lot. Over time, her body develops a autoimmune response or no response to penicillin, and then as an adult, she ends up becoming allergic to penicillin. So she gets getting hit with all of these things in her body, and she's sick, and she has her tonsils removed. Well, obviously, she needs to have her tonsils removed, but having 13 rounds of antibiotics before they took the tonsils out probably didn't help Trish along those years. In addition to that, Trish gets exposed to the cold sore virus before the age of 5 at a very, very young age. HSV1 never leaves the system. So, these are going in as ice cubes, and eventually they'll melt down, but the dyes are still there representing the dormant germs that are never leaving the immune system. Trish also gets MONE, or Epstein-Barr virus, as a teenager.
and that stays in her system forever. So all of this is happening, and this gene that's already funky, which is helping her immune system, is starting to get messed up. The switch is flipped, so to speak, so that it's not quite working right. It continues to not filter stuff like it needs to. So now all of a sudden, all of these extra contaminants aren't even being filtered properly. And all we can do is we're trying to keep this under control, but we're kind of in a losing fight here. So I'm going to stop this for just a sec to demonstrate. So as Trish gets older, she starts to have these chronic pain, just flares up everywhere because there's just inflammation going on. She went in the military. She got exposed to environmental issues, not once, not twice, but a bunch of times, right? All of these different environmental issues in the air, in the water, in our buildings, environmental factors get compounded, especially through her military service. So now she's got a little bit of all of this constantly in her system. And eventually, these will dissolve, but her immune system is now a mess. So in her case, she's developed what's known as leaky gut syndrome, which means the body, the guts, the intestines aren't actually filtering out the things it needs to and keeping the things that needs to be in the body. We all know that leaky brain and leaky gut are connected through the central nervous system. So then Trish is out there trying to do all of this and recognizing that her physical body is also going to be impacted by what's going on here in her emotional body, her mental body, right? Because if your brain can't function right, you got leaky brain, there's stuff going on in the mental body. So now that's all getting messed up. Trish also had a pretty rough childhood. Her ACEs score of childhood trauma is through the roof. So her emotional body is constantly being fed into, her physical body is being impacted, not just what's going on with her mental and emotional body, but also her spiritual body. We have to understand that we are a spiritual being living in a human body, and that we have not just traumas and experiences that we bring with us from this lifetime that are impacting our physical body, but also from past lifetimes. And having some sort of spiritual concept or understanding of that is very, very important. And so this is kind of an example of this battle that Trish is trying to fight, trying to keep her body healthy. And her immune system is just a mess because of, again, toxins, poisons, microbes, microplastics. And then in some cases, her immune system's constantly fighting. So one germ comes along and boom, she's got pneumonia, things like that. So this is like this breakdown in her immune system. So is it all hopeless? No, it's not actually hopeless. What it takes is a huge amount of the right kind of detoxing. So the body should be able to detox and process all of this on its own, but it doesn't. It needs help detoxing all this stuff out of there, either through this. Sometimes in some cases you end up with an artery blockage or surgery, or you need to manually take it out. But in most cases, what your body needs is just herbs and supplements, or to help you detox your body. You can sweat it out. There's a million different things you can do to detox your body, get all the crap in your body out, things that your body doesn't need, while also replacing it with what it does need. One of the problems with our medical system is we got this one fix for everything. They look at your blood work and they go, oh, all of your levels are correct. You don't need it. You're not malnourished. You don't need any more nutrients. But they're not taking into account that Trish is constantly fighting something going on in her immune system. So one of the things that I actually did for 2 years was I started out every month getting massive infused doses of the vitamins and minerals that I needed, while also constantly detoxing. And eventually, if we do this right, everything starts to balance out again. And what we've allowed the body enough help to heal the gut and get back to where we need to be by giving this body what it needs, detox, and go back to being balanced. And so when you're constantly having to put in more than what you're able to put out. There's not this equal energy exchange going on in your body. So you have to be able to put in what your body needs while also getting help eliminating what it does not need. And that's really a good example of the immune system. The way Doc explained it to me is that, if your immune system's overactive, which is really what this is about, this is an overactive immune system. It's constantly on, constantly fighting, doesn't know where it needs to fight. Once it starts overflowing, there's very little you can do to stop it except turn off the tap. If you can't turn off the tap, you got to find a way to balance it out by opening the tap more. You got to get the things that your body needs to get rid of the toxins while also taking in the right kind of nutrition it needs. And unfortunately, that is never a one-size-fits-all. What Trish needs is nothing the same as what Joel needs because his story is different. So the question is there any hope for Trish? Yes, there is. She can repair her immune system, but she can't do it just by fixing this. She has to remember that everything that's going on in her mental body is also going to affect her physical body. Everything going on in her emotional body is also going to affect her physical body. And everything going on in her spiritual body is also going to affect it. So it's not enough just to be balanced in the physical body. You have to be balanced in all these other areas as well. So, once you take care of factors that maybe your emotional and your mental and your spiritual issues are taken care of, and they're no longer feeding into the pain and the issues you're having in your physical body. And these can manifest in a lot of ways. Digestive issues, Crohn's disease, migraines, respiratory issues, rashes, mast cell activation, chronic inflammation, chronic fatigue, brain fog. All of these, again, go back to microbes and molds and things that, if your immune system is healthy and working, you can usually get rid of them on your own. But because we're in a world where everything is overprocessed and our commercial meats are loaded up with all kinds of hormones and extra things that our body does not want, our fruits are covered in pesticides. Those of us who are more sensitive to all these things, who have all whose immune systems are broken down and turned off, we have to do a different kind of work. So to put everything back in the right spot, put the filters back in place. And now that I'm much healthier, some of the things I have to realize is that if I want to add things to my body, like tattoos or coloring my hair, I'm not going to tell you stop dyeing your hair or coloring. Tattoos also, obviously, I'm not. But I know that my immune system is overactive. I know that I have to detox it more. I know that I cannot get these things out of my body on my own. So I have to do detox methods that work for my body. And there's so many of them out there. Some of the things that work for me are foot zoning, ionic foot spa. I use borax in all of my laundry. So that's many microbes and these mini toxins that we can't really see don't get into my body. So there's tons of examples out there. It's one of the things I do is I work with my clients to help them put the pieces together in a way that maybe they haven't experienced with the medical system. I also want to talk quickly about, hello. Yes, I hear you. Hello. I'll give you some in a minute. I want to talk one of the things I also want to talk about here is not just understanding that our body is attacked from all these different angles, from physical matter, but also frequencies. Frequencies can include entities or attacking our spiritual body or emotional body, or frequencies coming from our world. This sitting in these traffic sounds, these are low vibing frequencies, and they have an impact on our bodies and our minds and our mental health. But if they can do damage, then we can also use frequency then to heal our body, not just sound frequency, but also light frequency. Half the time we're walking around, in this artificial light that isn't even really, it's blocked, it doesn't come through clearly. But there's also light frequencies that can help us out there. And then we're starting to learn more and more about understanding how frequencies through light, through sound, through energy waves, have these directed frequencies. If we give it what our body needs, can create healing. So that is, of course, all stuff that works. I get updated frequencies from a naturopath who works with a machine called New Vision every 3 weeks. I pay $30 for that. And after I pay the initial fees, and it's great, but it is certainly not recognized and by our modern medical society here in the U.S. Nobody's paying me for that. So this body represented overactive. It's not balanced. This is a body that represents an underactive balance in the body. This is Joel. Joel was born in the 1970s, and actually for most of his life, he actually had a really good diet. He was raised by his dad, who was very aware that all of this stuff that causes problems are not good for you. So he actually got off fairly easy, most of his early life. He maybe only picked up like one or a few extra things, put it in his body. And his filtration system worked properly. It was only letting through what it wanted to. Even if he was being exposed to other stuff, it still really wasn't getting through. So, Joel's in pretty good shape. Later on in life, Joel becomes an athlete. And he actually starts exposing his body in his 20s to tons and tons and tons of alcohol. He's also doing a stint in the Army National Guard, goes overseas, ends up being exposed to burn pits. So all of a sudden, in these early 20s, on top of this onslaught of alcohol and all these exposures to chemicals, Joel's like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm all right. Also, he's overseas, right? He has a lot of mental stress going on, so that's being exposed. And in this case, I'm going to borrow Trish's, because a lot of the mental and emotional exposure isn't even happening to him. He's witnessing it and experiencing it for other people, and that's taking a toll on his spiritual body and his spiritual wellness. And then he's also constantly getting anthrax vaccines and all these other vaccines and burn exposure. So he's all of a sudden been hit with this onslaught in his 20s. He doesn't really notice, except every once in a while, he'll get a kidney stone. So he's like not filtering quite right. He's blocked. There's a blockage there. He's also hasn't really talked to many people about his emotions. So they're just kind of getting in there and overflowing. Even though Joel's in great shape, he doesn't have genetic predisposition to, an immune system issue. He does have these huge environmental and emotional and spiritual factors going on that are affecting him. Joel also, gets exposed to HPV in his 20s. Most people do get exposed to HPV in their 20s, but what they're now finding in men is that there is a link between HPV and throat cancer that they weren't aware of before, particularly if you get any kind of environmental toxins like Joel is having. So now, all of a sudden, he's rolling along, and his body, has been in good shape for so long, but, he's getting hit with all these toxins. He does have one predisposition in his genetics that's now been activated, not as early in childhood like Trish's was, but later in life it got activated, and in comes cancer invader. Now, Joel's in good shape, kicks cancer's ass, but now he's always got all this junk in his system. How does he make sure cancer doesn't come back? Well, a big part of it is adapting your diet, making sure you're not having a lifestyle of carcinogens. Joel gets out of the military, separates from that part of life, does some work with counselors, does a lot of work on himself. He's not being constantly bombarded with these mental and bodies and spiritual bodies. And in fact, what's happening is that Joel's these emotional, physical and mental bodies are actually getting healthier and healthier as he goes. So he's able to begin to get back what he needs in those bodies so they're not causing him problems. But still, now he has to still do what he needs to do to fix his physical body. So he, unfortunately, in the time and place that we are in, he goes through chemo, which works, but it's also putting a bunch of other toxic crap in his body through the chemo, and that's breaking down his immune system. So he has to be very, very careful while he's going through all this. Some of the people I met when I was getting my high vitamin infusions were cancer patients, and what they were doing, and because they could afford it, was getting these supplemental high doses of vitamins and minerals and glutathione and things to support their body while it was going through the chemotherapy treatment, and they're infused vitamins and minerals directly into your body. So that over time, eventually, the immune system, with the extra support it needs, not just the standard, this is how much vitamin D you need, but these super high doses of these vitamins and minerals actually not only defeat the illnesses, but allow the immune system and the body to start repairing itself. So even though these genes are still kind of funky for both of them, they are able to rebuild a filter. So in Trish's case, we are able to create enough healing that the immune system can begin to repair itself. An example of that is early on in my life, I broke my ankle in a motorcycle accident and it never healed. For some reason, it just stayed broke. I literally walked around on a broken ankle. Later in life, after I've done all this healing work and I've given my body what it needs for my immune system to start working, and for my ankle this time was able to start healing. And in Joel's case, he's actually, once he's got the chemo, the cancer, all the things are out of his body and are eventually dissolving out of his body, and he's doing detox, lymphatic drainage, all this stuff that you can do to help you hyper detox your body after you've had major treatments. Then Joel can start working on filling his body back up with the good stuff that he needs that matches what he needs until he starts to balance out again. He also has to create an environment where cancer cannot thrive, which means making sure his mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies are also balanced while he's giving his body what it actually needs to heal. We get to a place where it balances back out. What is going in is equal to what is being released when it needs to be released. Instead of it just holding it all in there and developing in cancer, or for Trish, it was just like this constant, like, overactive immune system. So it's always coming out in all these different ways, whether it's skin rashes or Crohn's disease. So that is my very visual example of trying to explain what this healing process is like and why it is so complicated and it's so difficult. And if you're asking, hey Trish, how much does all of this cost? Well, you're right. Most of the stuff that works for me is not covered under my insurance. So I'm living in a world where I have gone bankrupt, literally because of my health, and having to pay for all of this stuff. And a lot of the treatments that work for my body, that keep me out of pain, that keep me going, like acupuncture, like massage. I only get so many. If I can get the VA to pay for it, I only get so many a year. The high dose multivitamins that I get infused, I pay for those out of pocket. The supplements that I need to switch through, because you can't take the same kind of supplement forever because your body will stop being effective. All of these things are expensive and they absolutely add up. And that's one of the reasons that it's so frustrating to talk about healing and what we can do, because yes, there's stuff out there and it does work, but it is really expensive. And that's kind of it's a different conversation, but one I'm definitely having in my book about the idea that we live in the US, we live in a world where people make money off me staying sick and in pain. And that's not cool. So I'm trying to share what I've learned and help people along the way and hopefully save people money and time while talking to them about what's going on with their health and wellness. A lot of the times, no matter what's going on, there is an environmental factor. And then there's the fact that we've been poisoned, be it our pesticides, our fruits and vegetables, additives to our meats, just our general environment, air pollution, water pollution, and soil. And then, as all that breaks down our system, it stops working the way it needs to, and we have to pay attention and realize that everything is interconnected. Our bodies are not separate from our spirits or our emotions or our mental capacity. Whatever is going on that has you off balance will bleed over and impact the physical body. Hopefully this information is useful to you all, and it's given you a visual, the complexities of healing our physical body in a world that's full of bullshit.
This system you are in is breaking down. And there needs to be new approaches to health and wellness. And you are starting to see them in your world. They've just not been embraced yet by mainstream. But light frequencies, sound frequencies, energetic frequencies, understanding that negativity, anger, hate, holding on to these low frequency emotions does harm, not just to humanity, but throughout the galaxy. These frequency waves are set out and they impact other places besides just Earth. Humans have to learn to move from a place of love instead of a place of fear. Fear of liminal spaces, fear of the unknown, fear of not having answers, fear of scarcity. Fear drives low energy, destructive forces. Moving and acting from love, whatever you do, if you're doing it from a place of love, not conditional love, not I will love you if you behave in this certain way or do this particular thing, but true love is a different frequency. It is a gentler frequency. We cannot reach that frequency. Higher frequency does not necessarily equate to a faster frequency. We cannot rush our way there. Part of the ability to heal is to slow down, not rush from one thing to the next to the next. To recognize that there is power in waiting, in the unknown, in being still. There's difficulty with stillness and silence in the human world. There is much value in it. Time is not as fleeting as you imagine it to be. Just because you've forgotten, but you will remember. It is time for humanity to take its place in the cosmos and understand itself. For its ability to overcome and raise up, but also its ability to destroy and take responsibility for that.
Human body was truly created to heal itself, but the fact is There's so much poison in us from so many different kinds of toxins and environmental issues and pollutants, and that we have to understand what is actually going on around us in order to do that healing of the physical body. And as we talked about, those other spiritual, mental, and emotional bodies are also related. And, we really need to understand in this new earth that there are many, many, many different types of methods of healing and modalities that hasn't been recognized. And it's time for that to change. I realized really early on in my 20s that I was going to have to do my own research. I was going to have to self-heal, particularly after I lost Doc. I had to find new doctors. I had to be able to explain what was going on. I really had to become an advocate for myself. And that's something I really want to work on with the books that I'm putting out. So in the meantime, I'm going to give you some links to more information, and I'll definitely let you know when these books are published that are really going to focus on these concepts of healing. This episode was all about sharing what I've learned and understanding that on the new earth, wellness means something very, very different. It's my hope that anyone who has been watching this episode is taking away something useful, and to contact me and reach out to me on my website. I will do my best to assist as much as I can as a wellness coach and intuitive educator. Contact info along with the links to additional research are available in the show notes. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing to The Simone Frequency, a channeled podcast for the new earth. Don't forget to join the Simone Seeds community for more personal connection, a chance to join live channeled sessions with me, Simone, and my other guides, and more extended contact. Thanks for being here with me on this episode of The Simone Frequency. Catch you on the next new moon with a new frequency.